The HSA is basically the best tax advantage account you can find. And if that's the case, you want to do what you can to maximize that type of account.
This is 401k Specialist Editor-in-Chief Brian Anderson, and this is the 401k Specialist Podcast. A recent State of Employee Benefits survey from Benefit Focus shows that 84% of employers now offer a mix of traditional and high-deductible health plans, and participation in HDHPs is particularly high among Gen Z employees and is also increasing among millennials and Gen X. Along with a high-deductible health plan comes the opportunity to utilize a health savings account, which, as advisors know, offers unmatched tax incentives and the opportunity to invest money in addition to using it to pay for out-of-pocket medical expenses. But many Americans are still unfamiliar with HSAs and therefore aren't taking advantage of their unique capabilities. We're going to talk with a financial advisor who has some great ideas about how to change this right after this brief message.
Inspira Financial brings together health and wealth with comprehensive integrated financial wellness solutions for businesses of all sizes and the people they serve, all under one roof. With $62 billion in assets under custody and powered by the industry's most trusted experts, service, and technology, we give employers dedicated account support and adaptable technology solutions while providing attractive account features to drive employee HSA usage and retention, like diverse investment options and an eligible expense scanner in our mobile app.
Today, we're happy to have retirement planning advisor Jeremy Keil, CFP, CFA, as our guest on the 401k Specialist Podcast. Jeremy, aka Mr. Retirement, is the owner of Keil Financial Partners out of the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. He also hosts the Retirement Revealed podcast and blog, and he's also got a YouTube channel. Jeremy caught our eye recently while talking about some common HSA mistakes and some key strategies that can help workers make the most of this powerful financial tool. And he's here to expand on that today. Welcome to the 401k Specialist Podcast, Jeremy.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
All right. First off, can you tell us a little bit about your practice at Keil Financial Partners, who you typically work with, any kind of particular areas of focus?
Yeah, we focus exclusively on retirement planning. So you're generally going to be a 62-year-old retiring in the next 12 months. You might have a pension, but you definitely have 401k and Social Security, and oftentimes HSAs, which is how we got introduced.
Let's dive into the HSA conversation. What got you interested in providing education about health savings accounts?
It seems most of my clients who have roughly $1 million or so, a lot of them are engineers, and they kind of like to do the math on different financial topics. But almost every single one of them has the HSA through their employer, and they have close to $0 in it, which just doesn't seem to make sense. Why wouldn't you, especially if you're a math-oriented, kind of detail-oriented person, why wouldn't you grow your HSA as much as possible? And so I found some common misperceptions amongst this group that I thought was likely to be amongst general populations. And so I started educating, doing some videos and blogs about the HSA.
Can you tell us now about those three most common mistakes that you're seeing people making when it comes to HSAs? What are those key things that people are doing wrong?
Yeah, the biggest one is that they think that their employer HSA is the only HSA available to them. You might have your employer say, we're going to take money from your payroll and we're going to put it in the HSA. Oftentimes they'll do a match or just throw like $500 in or something like that. And the employee doesn't realize that they don't have to use specifically the employer HSA. If they want to add their extra money in or transfer money over because they have a different HSA they think is better, they can do that. So one mistake is that they just stick to the employer HSA, whether that's the best HSA or not. The other mistake is that they think that whatever happened from their payroll, if it's $100 a paycheck, $2,600 a year, perhaps, they think that's the maximum, and it's not the $8,000 a year. The number changes every year for single and couple, but they think it's the amount that they put into the HSA through their payroll is their max, not the actual IRS limit. So they're not putting in as much. And I think the reason they believe that is because HSA and FSA sound so similar. They're kind of used to the FSA where they are making sure they don't put in too much. Because you can't put in too much to FSA and lose the money. HSA, you cannot put in too much. If it's left over, you can let money stay left over throughout the year. So that's another mistake. And then the third mistake is that they don't invest it for the long term. You've talked just now and on previous podcasts about how the HSA is basically the best tax advantage account you can find. And if that's the case, you ought to do what you can to maximize that type of account. And if you're investing into your traditional IRA for the future, maybe you ought to invest your HSA for the future.
Well, so those are kind of the big mistakes you're seeing people making. Now, I know you've also got some top HSA strategies to help people get the most out of their accounts, which I imagine might have something to do with rectifying some of those mistakes they're making.
That's basically it. If you have 3 mistakes, the strategies you can do to get better is is exactly at rectifying it and fixing those mistakes. So know that you do not have to stick to your employer HSA. Yes, perhaps your money from payroll and the employer match goes into whichever HSA provider the employer picked. But when you are putting in extra money, you can go anywhere you want in the world that offers an HSA, and you can transfer that money. It's not a 401k where you're kind of waiting till you're 59 and a half or retire to be able to transfer money. The money hits your HSA and you can move it. You can transfer that right away. So find the best HSA for you and try to use that HSA, not necessarily the employer HSA. So that's one strategy. The other strategy is to max out your HSA. So whether you're self-only or a family plan, and for 2024, self-only is $4,150. If you have a family plan, that maximum is $8,300. And the catch-up contribution is $1,000 per person. The difference there is you've got to be over age 55 compared to like your 401k IRA where it's age 50. So you can max out a couple there, right? You can get 10 grand into your HSA. And if you're looking at maxing your retirement, you're probably maxing out 401ks or Roth IRAs. You've got the money available to do that, and try to maybe do your HSA first as a maximum, perhaps even before things like your Roth IRA or 401k to max out. And then, of course, just like if this is extra money that you would have put in your 401k or Roth IRA and saved for the future, then go ahead and invest for the future with your HSA and let that money grow. I think that's why a lot of people are calling this the medical IRA. That's not an official IRS or government term, but it's a great term to say, just like you save your traditional IRA for the future, you ought to maybe consider saving your HSA for the future. So the term medical IRA, I think, is a good way to think about it and maybe approach the HSA.
All right. And then you also talked about finding the best HSA.
Yeah, find the best HSA for you. And that's going to be a bit of the interest rate. I looked at the interest rates available for some of the top 4 HSA in terms of assets, how much money are people putting in. And you put in $1 to one of the HSAs, you'll get 0.05. You put in $1 into another one of the HSAs, you'll get 5.0. So there's 100 times difference in the interest between one provider compared to the next, which seems like an extreme example, but it seemed fairly consistent that there's a large difference in the interest rates out there for the HSAs. And of course, too, if you are trying to invest, some HSAs allow you to invest your dollars immediately. And so if you put some money in, you can start investing right away. Others say, oh, you've got to have $2,000, $3,000, whatever the number is in the low paying cash account before you're allowed to invest. So take a look to see if you're trying to maximize for interest, maximize for investing, and pick that HSA that's best for you.
I was wondering if you can share any real world examples of how you've helped clients better utilize their HSAs.
Yeah, the biggest one I can think of is somebody that did well. They knew kind of a couple of these strategies, but they didn't take care of a third one. And their strategy was that they were maxing out their HSA for both, husband and wife. And so they had over 120 grand in their HSA, but they had it at the low yielding HSA, and their interest rate. Now I've got them at a 5% interest rate instead of a 0.5% interest rate. Their amount of interest over the next year is going to be about $6,000 just by switching their HSA to a different provider. I've got a few other clients that have been investing their HSA, but they were with some companies that they weren't too happy with because they were getting charged $2 a month for statements and things like that. So switched them over to a different provider, same type of investments, but now they don't have that feeling like they're getting nickel and dimed on it. And it's interesting too, you get to 65 and you're thinking, what do I do with this $50,000, $100,000 HSA that I've seen sometimes? And the key is to hold on to your receipts. So if you contribute to an HSA in 2024, but then allow the money to grow and now it's 2030 and you've got those receipts along the way, you could take the money out of the HSA and reimburse yourself for the prior medical expenses as long as you already had the HSA, as long as you kind of contributed to it for that, that year previously. You can use it for medical expenses that you don't have to do it one-to-one. Like with an FSA, you think, oh, I got a bill in May, I better submit my receipt for May. No, you can hold on to these receipts. I've personally got a folder going where I've got copies of the receipts and then Excel spreadsheet where I've got over 20 grand now of unreimbursed medical expenses that at any point in time in the future, I could reimburse myself from the HSA.
That's a great tip. A great tip. I mentioned back in the intro that benefit focus survey that found that younger generations are really going for the high deductible health plans, making them eligible to open an HSA. So what do you think the key is to getting more people to do that and actually take advantage of all these benefits that HSAs have to offer?
I think it's them realizing that you can get high interest rate. If you can get 5% interest on your HSA, growing tax-free for your future, that beats the 5% in the online savings account that is being taxable every single year as you have that. So perhaps a bit of education, knowing that you aren't stuck with the plan that's given to you by your employer, and also understanding this is not an FSA. You can grow this for the future. You can reimburse yourself in the future. You can let the money you put in today be used down the road. There was a study by Devanir, who you had on the podcast before. And if I recall their numbers correctly, roughly $3,000 is the average HSA account. I was looking at some 2022 IRS data, and roughly $3,000 is the HSA tax break. So roughly speaking, you're putting in $3,000, holding it there for a year and taking it out. And you're kind of treating, your average American's treating an HSA like an FSA. So if there's one phrase to remember, HSAs are not FSAs. You are allowed to grow your money. You're allowed to let the money stay in there after the year is done.
All right. Jeremy Keil, owner of Keil Financial Partners. This has been great. Thank you for sharing your insights today on the 401k Specialist podcast.
Thank you, Brian.
Inspira Financial brings together health and wealth with comprehensive integrated financial wellness solutions for businesses of all sizes and the people they serve, all under one roof. With $62 billion in assets under custody and powered by the industry's most trusted experts, service, and technology. We give employers dedicated account support and adaptable technology solutions while providing attractive account features to drive employee HSA usage and retention, like diverse investment options and an eligible expense scanner in our mobile app.